Today, we're going to debunk the carnivore diet, all the nonsense, and then I'm going to give you some solutions. What's up, everyone? Welcome to my very humble channel. Now let's get right on into it. I'm going to debunk the carnivore diet, but I don't want to leave you just feeling deflated. I want to give you guys solutions because there are great things about the carnivore diet. Number one, you don't do the carnivore diet to lose weight. In fact, you can start gaining tons of weight. The goal is to get into ketosis. And a lot of you who are doing a carnivore diet have your macros completely wrong. You're counting calories. That's not how you do it. The way you lose weight is by upping your fat and moderating your protein, which I'll go more into. You also have to think about resting. You have to think about your organs digesting, your systems rather, digesting the protein and the fat and utilizing it. And number two, you cannot eat high protein. 2 pounds of beef a day is the biggest lie and foolery and fluckery of the friggin' millennia. If you have too much protein, your body can only chew, swallow, digest, break down, and use the amino acids for structure. But the problem is you guys are eating so much protein, you have low stomach acid, or you have high stomach acid, but typically it's low. You have hypochlorhydria. You have chronic dehydration, so your electrolytes tank. You develop constipation, often people doing a carnivore diet eating all that meat. And you have high uric acid levels, but I'm going to go more into that. You cannot take that protein, convert it into glucose, and fill the gas tank enough to stabilize your blood sugar. What ends up happening is you eat all that protein, your body's like, the assembly line is getting backed up. I can only use a percentage of this protein. The rest gets converted back into glucose. And if you guys have wonky blood sugar or insulin, you're going to store it as fat. Essentially, that protein, that overeating of that protein is turning into a candy bar. Over time, you might see somebody's insulin invert and we have this physiological insulin resistance rebound because now the body is just converting all this protein into sugar. What's the point? We're at 3 at debunking the carnivore diet. Now, with that said, people trying to do carnivore diets and fast to lose weight. That's not going to happen. That fits with the other debunk of thinking that you're going to drop your insulin doing a carnivore diet because you're not eating candy bars. But like I said, overeating protein, your body just converts that excess protein back into sugar. And now, because you started with destabilized blood sugar, now you're even more like this, you're starting to store. So the debunking is if your blood sugar is unstable and if you continue to eat high protein, this is going to affect all of your organs, your liver, your kidney, your gallbladder, your colon. All right, we're at debunk, I think number 5. We're still debunking. If you are not pooping on a carnivore diet, you're not using all of the protein. You're actually calcifying the excess protein in your colon, creating a toxic soup of a mess because that excess protein, if you are not pooping on a carnivore diet, it could be for several reasons. 1 being chronic dehydration, 2 meaning slow motility because your stomach acids are low and you don't have enough protease or lipase or even bile salts to break down. You have a bacterial imbalance in your colon and motility slows down. That poop begins to plaque and it's stuck in your colon and it has jagged edges and it just like Velcros the poop that's stuck there or calcifying, and you have more coming, it'll just Velcro and just keep plaquing on your colon. If this is happening to you, that you are not pooping on a carnivore diet, you are incredibly toxic. Your body can only use a certain amount of amino acids, and the rest comes out of your body as waste. If they tell you that not pooping means you're using all the protein, you've just been bamboozled. All right, let's continue with our next debunking that the carnivore diet is going to stop all of your gut issues. It's going to heal your gut. You're going to seal up the gut wall, the small intestinal wall. The microvilli are going to grow back. Not true. What carnivore actually does is it takes down inflammation temporarily, right? Because if you have issues with salicylates or oxalates, or you can have oxalates in bone marrow, goitrogenic effect from cruciferous vegetables, nightshade issues from tomatoes or potatoes, wheat, gluten intolerance from eating wheat, and it might have cross-reacted to rice or to oats, then eating a meat-based fat-first diet can literally take down the inflammation, but then the backslap is the fact that you can't use protein as gasoline to fuel the car because your glycogen storages aren't going to store and fill up on protein. They can either fill up on carbohydrates or on ketones. And if you don't eat enough fat because you're eating all that protein, your blood sugar is going to spike. I don't care if there's a lot of fat on that ribeye. That's not enough fat. You're always going to dominate in protein, which will cancel out the ability to make ketones, so that you cannot get into ketosis, which goes back to the other debunking. How are you going to lose weight on a carnivore diet if your blood sugar is running high, you're not pooping, and you're training your body to have a spike in glucose from eating all that protein? You'll be in storage mode. And what you actually see is weight loss on the scale from eating all that protein and not getting into ketosis is water loss and muscle loss, and it's called skinny fat. Let's continue with the debunking. Now, this correlates with the last one about, let's say, inflammation on the skin. Carnivore is going to help that inflammation go down. If you're having a histamine response to, let's say, a particular salad or dressing or plant or whatever type of processed food, then getting rid of all of that is a great way on a carnivore diet to get the inflammation down. Like I said, getting the inflammation down or getting your blood sugar down if you're doing a carnivore diet and your blood sugar is running high because you're eating too many processed snacks and sweet things and you're craving sweet things. And then just like, let's say, fasting and carnivore, I hate when people do those two together. What ends up happening is your insulin will, everything will look lovely in the very beginning. And then after a while, the blood sugar goes right back up because you start to eat more and more protein to feel satiated. And when you fast on top of carnivore, you double, this is another debunking, you double the amount of and create an imbalance of your fluids. You become super mega hardcore dehydrated with low blood pressure. Consultation after consultation, people have developed low blood pressure because they don't drink enough water. You lose way more water than you would normally. You are not watching your potassium and balancing it with sodium and not taking either magnesium or not taking the right type of magnesium. So when you fast, you lose a bunch of water. When you do carnivore and no carbs, you lose a bunch of water. And then you're not eating enough fat because now you're fasting, and eating food is filling the gas tank, calming down the hypothalamus and not going into that adrenal axis, trying to make sugar out of your own muscle to regulate your blood sugar because you're not in ketosis eating all that protein. So you have a double whammy effect of problems when you fast and you do a carnivore diet. So the solution would be to actually eat something small, fatty protein every 3 hours and add rendered fat. To get into ketosis, you need to add fat onto the plate. And if your gallbladder is all junked up, then you might want to do beef trimmings from a healthy cow and grill it or air fry it or boil it, but soften that fat up and consume the fat in chunks rather than the oil. Because if your gallbladder is sludgy or it is stony, then eating liquid fat is very difficult to digest. And then, like I said, you have a piling up and a crash when you do fasting, which also junks up your gallbladder. Yes. And having issues with blood sugar and your hydration, fasting, and carnivore. Next, it's not necessarily a debunk, but it's sort of an omission of carnivores not talking about the gallbladder enough during a carnivore diet. I don't care how much fat you eat, if you're doing ground beef or pork belly or anything fatty or adding rendered fat, and you don't check the status of your gallbladder, we're talking you can create an infection if you have stones, especially if stones that block the biliary duct, right? You have to really look at how your symptoms are. You have to look maybe at a scan. Getting an ultrasound done of your gallbladder is a very level 1 or maybe 2, figuring out if you have formed stones in the gallbladder, which can block the piping. And when you feel a blockage, a stone that gets stuck in your plumbing, you feel like it's the end of the world. You feel nauseous, you feel sick, you don't feel well. You can feel bloated, you can have diarrhea. People who have severe stones or have an infection can vomit, or they'll have that extreme pain on the right side, or shoulder blade pain radiating all the way down. And this is something that a lot of the gurus do not mention. They just go, prime, eat as much protein as possible. And then people do it because they're afraid of fat, which gets me to my next debunk. The next debunk is that fat makes you fat on a carnivore diet. So people are still eating too lean cuts of meat. And even though now the gurus are finally pushing fat, they're not pushing ketosis. They're like, eat a bunch of fat, but they don't really understand ketosis, so they don't know how much fat. And you can't eat a bunch of ground beef to get to the allotted amount of fat that you need to get into ketosis. If you're doing a carnivore diet, you must be in ketosis. Otherwise, you have low carbs and you have low fat and you have high protein. Fat and carbs are the only fuel that your body can sustain itself on. Protein, it cannot. That's when the body learns how to start eating itself. And once your body starts to eat itself, your immune system tanks and autoimmunity skyrockets. So make sure you're eating enough fat. 200 grams is your baseline to start with, depending on your age, your height, your muscle mass, your activity. Everyone is different, my people. There is no one size fits all on macros. All right, debunking number 20,000. You don't count calories and you don't use chronometers and MyFitnessPal. Your body is not a mathematical equation. Everyone is different. You can take 500 calories of cookies and 500 calories of pork belly, and one is going to make you more fat than the other. Pork belly is loaded in fat. It's a fatty protein. This requires less insulin, right? Because blood sugar that gets too high damages the frack out of your cells. Fat does not damage. It doesn't. You have to understand that fat does not make you fat, and you don't count calories. You count the quality of your hormones. If insulin is broken, that means that you're just going to take whatever excess protein that you're consuming. And also, if your blood sugar is high because of stress, you take everything in the blood and store it. Stress spikes blood sugar. Let me say that again. Stress spikes blood sugar. Blood sugar spikes insulin. And insulin is vomited out, and it just swoops everything in the blood, stores it as fat because it thinks that you are running from a lion and you need that energy in the future in case that you die. So this is what's very, very precarious and confusing, is that people don't understand the fight or flight system when it comes to hormones. Estrogen, thyroid, so eating all that protein, you're not filling up the gas tank. Protein is a crappy source of fuel. Listen to me good. Well, protein is a terrible source of fuel. You cannot fill up the gas tank on protein. You cannot. Pretty quickly after eating all that protein, and the body goes into gluconeogenesis, and it tries to use blood sugar, not enough glycogen storage, you crash. And if you keep crashing, the next hormone to tank, thyroid. Thyroid will try to slow you down, but you don't. You drink coffee to keep going. Now you start to see it on your body that you're falling apart. Hormones, then your reproductive hormones become affected. Women lose their period, especially fasting and carnivore, or women will lose their period, or they'll bleed, or their menstrual cycle will be extended, or they're not ovulating. Men's testosterone is tanking because they're not getting into ketosis, because they're not separating protein from fat in here in the mind and trying to figure out how much protein do I need, which is moderate to low, and how much fat I need, which is high to high, to be doing a carnivore diet and to fix your health. Now we know that carnivore does not fix your skin. It only does it temporarily, right? Because the back slap effect of using it to, let's say, take down eczema is that if you're not in ketosis, which most people are not doing a carnivore diet, and then they have issues with their gallbladders and their thyroids and their sex hormones, when you're using a carnivore diet to take down inflammation, but you're not adapting, you develop other issues. Like I said, the hair can start falling out, or you might become constipated through dehydration. But let's talk about the next myth. Debunking. If you have loose stool on a carnivore diet, sometimes it doesn't go away. People are like, it'll go away, I swear. 2 weeks, it'll be gone. Some people, it never goes away. Bile is released too quickly from the gallbladder, and it just doesn't stop because people are still stressed. People are eating too much protein. The body can't find its homeostatic balance. Or the gallbladder is, again, sludged up, and you have diarrhea, and it just won't go away because you're eating a lot of ground beef, for example. Or if you're coming from the world of veganism, or I used to drink a little bit too much, or a lot of coffee, or just processed foods, or poor quality of foods, you have a fungal overgrowth, or you have a parasitical overgrowth, and you do a carnivore diet, you're not going to just literally improve your health. The debunking of things has a lot to do with finding a balance. That balance is incredibly important. For example, doing a carnivore diet and having kefir. So this is another debunk with your carnivore diet. Just like I'm eating meat and then I'm drinking kefir. The microbes, the bacteria, the beneficial bacteria that you might need from that kefir is not attaching into the large intestinal wall because it needs a matrix of fiber to attach to. But because you're not eating any fiber, the gut microbiome has a hard time to flourish. Or if you're not, let's say, doing any type of fermented foods or kefir or raw milk or whatever, and you're just trying to heal your gut just on meat, the bacteria that is beneficial is not staying balanced. It needs that probiotic to stay there, to keep that balance of beneficial bacteria in conjunction with the bad bacteria. And heavy metals in the air, fluoride in the water, birth control pills, HRTs, your creams, your estrogen, the testosterone pellets, all of those things can make your gut bacteria go like this. Coffee enemas, so many things make your gut bacteria go berserko. Cheese, nuts, people are still calling cheese and nuts carnivore. Then these things can make the bacteria go berserko. And if you're trying to heal the gut, either eating the wrong foods will keep a dysbiotic gut, or just simply not having enough fiber from time to time to keep the good bacteria that's already there in check with the bad stuff. And as we get to the tail end of all these debunkings, I could literally keep going on for days, but I want to hit the main points. If you're adding fruit, if you see people adding fruit to a carnivore diet, they're either having a dysglycemic reaction to the meat, that means their blood sugar's like this, feeling tired, or their hair is falling out, the thyroid becomes underactive, sex hormones drop, lack of energy, depression, people add fructose back, but nobody's talking about the fructose intolerance. Nobody's talking about the histamine. If you have leaky gut, meat alone is not going to fix it. With leaky gut, which is holes in your small intestinal wall, comes a bacterial imbalance, comes a lowering of the antihistamine diamine oxidase, otherwise known as DAO, and DAO cannot balance without the fiber, without the circadian rhythm, getting your stress down, going to bed early. and eating the right foods in the right amounts. So the debunking is thinking that you could just go and add fruit. If you have a fructose intolerant, the candida or the histamine can explode. So people do not do that. And people with hypoglycemia, adding a bunch of fruit like honey or a bunch of melons or whatever to their all meat diet can develop worsening dysglycemia, thus creating more autoimmunity to the body. So do not do that. Either eat your carbs and do a low carb, high fat protocol, or try to be in ketosis while doing carnivore, and use carnivore as a therapeutic way to get the inflammation down, and then pop over to the keto world and add a little bit of vegetables for that prebiotic fiber, for the potassium, and sometimes for the taste and variety and the bacteria, because all food has different kinds of bacteria. Another thing I want to mention is people doing the coffee with a carnivore diet. If you drink coffee, you don't have energy. Like I said, adenosine receptors are taking in the wrong hormone. They're taking in adrenaline and not adenosine. So people are having issues with their blood sugar. They're having issues with their sleep, inflammation, diverticulitis. Some people have an inflammation of their colon, and then eating an all meat diet for the short term can be amazing for the colon for a short period of time. But if you're drinking coffee, you're counterintuitive because it's very acidic and it completely dehydrates you because it's a diuretic. You cannot get, listen to me and listen to me very well. You cannot get all of your minerals that you need to balance your electrolytes from an all meat diet. A lot of people are having weird symptoms they would never ever equate to being chronically dehydrated. Kidney pain, side pain. They don't equate the constipation, the high uric acid or urea levels in the body when they go get their stuff checked. Their sodium potassium pump or balance is completely wackadoodle. The importance of knowing your health status before you do any diet where you cut out carbs. Carbs are not amazing. They're not. Don't get me wrong. They're not amazing. They're actually quite horrible, but your body's used to them. That's the problem. You live a whole lifetime of your body relying on glucose, then you cut it out last minute. But you didn't look under the hood of the car to see if you have a stuck ileocecal valve, if you have chronic constipation. People don't even know they're friggin' constipated. If you have leaky gut, if you have energy crisis, like dysglycemic blood sugar that bounces up and down, hypoglycemia, hyperglycemia, what's your insulin? What's going on with your liver, your kidneys, and your gallbladder? Do you already have problems with constipation and plaquing on the colon wall? You don't have enough squeezing motion, and now you're pushing all this meat through without balancing your electrolytes. The meat begins to plaque and harden and leave toxins or expel toxins back into the bloodstream, thus slowing down the liver. Check your liver enzymes. So let's go into some solutions. The solutions for using carnivore for weight loss is don't. Just don't. Focus on your hormones. How you do that is by going to bed extra early. It's by diaphragmatic breathing. It's by putting your feet in the dirt and trying to get electrons, connecting to a circadian rhythm, eating every 3 hours if you have dysglycemia or hypoglycemia. Do not ever eat too much protein because of the problems of high iron, B12. Really, it's iron. People do not realize if you have leaky gut and your cells won't open up and let the iron in, it's swimming high in the body, creating incredible damage. It's the same thing with B12. I have so many clients, like, my B12 is high. And I'm like, okay, let's pull back on all that beef. Let's rotate the meats. So these are solutions. Rotate your meat. They have different bacteria. They have different levels of iron. Frank Tufano, who I actually like Frank, he had problems with high iron. He developed hemochromatosis. Now, why? Everybody has their theory as to why, but he couldn't take in iron. He developed an iron toxicity and had to go and donate blood because of this. Know your health status. If you have thyroid issues and you go to a carnivore diet and you eat all that protein and don't make sure that you're getting into ketosis, which can take up to 6 months, in that 6-month period, your thyroid tanks. You might have to graduate slowly into a carnivore diet, start with low carb, high fat, and then flip over to a carnivore diet, heal the body, and then flip over to a keto diet or go back to low carb, high fat. Low carb, high fat is great, but keto is the best. Carnivore is amazing, but nothing trumps a ketogenic diet where you get a little bit of that fiber in to keep the gut microbiome stable. Always, always keep your protein moderate to low and your fats high. Check your gallbladder to see it's functioning properly. If it's not, you might have to switch over to trimmings and, let's say, high quality olive oil or coconut oil if you don't react to the caprylic acid. Rotate your meats. Check things. Test to see what works. Don't keep pushing narratives if you don't feel well. If you choose a type of magnesium and you don't feel well, switch to another kind. I've got a lot of videos explaining what type of magnesium, what type of potassium, how much water, how much salt. Where's my salt? What kind of salt? All different types of aspects you have to consider. They're minute details, but they are important. Now I'm tired of freestyling this video. I've got chapters on this subject. I hope this helps. Comment below if you've done carnivore and anything that I've mentioned you have experienced. Muscle cramps, facial twitching, poor sleep, loose stool, constipation, tired, heartburn, skin issues. Issues on top of issues. The blood sugar, for sure. There's so many things to consider if your hormones tank, if your insulin's going up, if your A1C's going up, if your hair starts falling out, if you develop depression. Don't use a carnivore diet for depression unless it's for the short term. You flip back into the keto world. And always, always make sure that the goal of doing a carnivore diet is to get into ketosis, to take down your inflammation, your autoimmunity, and then evolve. Don't become dogmatic and stay in this lane that may not be beneficial because you're missing the balance of gut microbiome. Comment below. Tell me what symptom you have. Also, if you guys need a consultation, you can go to stephanieperson.com to book a consultation. I talk to you one-on-one. I also run a course. It's $15 a month. Low carb, high fat, keto, omnivore, and carnivore. I cover all 3 diets because not all diets work with people. Not one diet, my bad. Not one diet works with all of you. Go to my website and book a consultation if you need help. Not one diet fits all. Remember that. Not one diet fits all. That's what happens with people when they listen to their uncles, cousins, neighbors, daughters, friends, teacher do so amazing fasting and doing carnivore or just doing carnivore. That doesn't mean that you're going to. Remember, there's a lot of little nuances, a lot of little nuggets you need to think about. Stephanie Ketogenic is my Instagram. Stephanie the Business Person is my Facebook fan page. I got the business at 55 going on 56. Y'all who have been following me, my old videos, I just did a video doing a 10-year review. I need to go further back. What did I look like 10 years ago, 15 years ago? How has my health improved? Y'all, words cannot define how amazing eating a keto diet, which I pretty much just ride the line of carnivore because I make sure I get an avocado in, which is another thing. Forgot to mention potassium. A lot of people don't realize you're not getting enough potassium. And there's several remedies to that. You can do a meat broth and you can do, let's say, oyster extract. You have to find oyster extract that has more potassium in it. But with that said, I like a keto omnivorous diet. I use avocados, eat plants from time to time, but I ride the line of carnivore. And that is the reason why I do so many carnivore videos. I see the absolute benefits of it. But if you're not thinking about your individual health, I see the pitfalls. And I don't want you to fall in the big old hole. Get ready for the challenge. Sign-ups will probably start September. I will come up with a date. I keep pushing it along because it has everything to do with me finishing the content for it, and also my website person finalizing how we're going to do this, because it's going to be a life altering change. Energy! I do. I feel so incredibly fortunate because every day I get to look out. I'll show you outside of my window. I get to look outside my window at my amazing life. Y'all stay safe, be careful. We've got 7 more years before things get scary, so wake up.